guy. I'm Tim. My voice is going in and out, but that's okay. As Josh said, got my start in Techstars and built up a team of evangelists at SendGrid prior to this, and now I'm here at a wonderful company called Keen that is actually have a bit members. So happy to be in front of you all and excited that everybody is equally excited to talk about this topic, which didn't really exist a while ago. So, before evangelism existed, there was a smart guy named Al who talked about numbers, which he was fond of, and he pointed out to the world that not everything that you can track really counts, and there are a lot of things that you can't track that really, really do count. So, when you talk about evangelism, as we, whether or not you're familiar with it, there are a lot of things that you can count. There are things around your events, like how many people came to your event, how many developers did you meet at that event. There are things like around your social content. How much engagement are you getting on Twitter or Facebook or on your blog or documentation, other types of content where developers coming and finding content and maybe getting to your sign page. So while there are tons and tons of things that you can count that are possible, it's also the case that not everything needs to be counted. So I urge you, as this angry puppet does too, to not count things for the wrong reasons. So you might ask yourself, like, well, what are wrong reasons to count things? And something like investor pressure. So when we spend money as a company, we're spending investor money oftentimes, and they want an ROI number back to you. But that's not really a good reason to start counting things. Another reason, as some of you may have experienced as evangelists, is pressure from other coworkers. We have really awesome jobs. We get to travel the world and drink beer and have fun, and it's super glamorous. And that might cause jealousy amongst other coworkers, but it's not a matter of jealousy for and a need for numbers. It's a misunderstanding. So instead of putting numbers in a spreadsheet, take that experience of evangelism to those people. Whether it's bringing an internal hackathon to your company so they get the impact of evangelism internally, or taking them out in the field and having them experience what evangelism has, the type of impact it has on developers in the world. Just like you shouldn't measure for the wrong reasons, you should measure for the right reasons and make a happy puppet out of Ernie. Good reasons to measure things. Reward and recognition of the evangelist's efforts. Just like every other employee in the company, you have to be able to have some sense of, are they doing a good job or are they not? And if it's yourself, the same thing. You need to know how you can improve, how you can get better day to day. You're doing a lot of different things within the realm of evangelism, so you want to be able to know between effort A and effort B, which one's performing better. You have limited resources, so you need to prioritize. And if you're experimenting with new things, you need to know is it working or not. Evangelism is an art and a science. It's an art because it takes a lot of improvisation, it takes human interaction and creativity and quick-wittedness to execute, but it's a science because it takes human psychology and a knowledge of that, and physics. And to dig deeper on the physics side and the science side, since we're all technically minded, there's this thing called the observer effect, and it basically states the act of observing and measuring something can actually change the results of what you're measuring in a way that creates misunderstandings again. So when you apply the observer effect to developer evangelism, evangelists are really innately able to do what they're doing and do it well, but if you put a framework to measure what they're doing, you run the chance of actually disrupting the genuine human-to-human interaction that they're shooting for and that makes evangelism work in the first place. Traditional marketing, which evangelism typically gets compared to, really lends itself to measurement. You can see a click turn into a conversion, but you can't see a handshake at the beginning of a hackathon turn into a hug at the end, and then a $500 a month subscription 2 weeks, 2 years later. It's just not trackable. So since it's not trackable in many cases, don't track it. Use your time wisely. There's a lot of things we have to do in a day, and it's not a wise use of an evangelist's time to enter business card information into a CRM so they get dropped into a drip campaign. It's much more wise to develop those relationships further that you already worked on. So you gotta have faith. I agree that evangelism is kind of a weird connotation with the religion, but you do have to have faith. I think it's called this for a reason. You have to believe that genuine human-to-human interaction is valuable and it's worthwhile, and it's worth your time and your effort and your money. So to rewrap all this, we know that everything can't be counted, and just because you can count it doesn't that it matters. We know that there are tons of stuff to count, but you have to be wise about what you're counting and make the decisions for the right reasons. We know that there's an art and a science, and understanding that is going to make you better and be successful at evangelism, and we know that you have to have faith and believe that it works. So, to everyone as a company in the audience, I ask you to ask yourselves in the next couple weeks, why are you doing this? Or why are you considering it? Why are you measuring what you're measuring today? And I think you'll come away with that question with answers that'll help you be more successful in the next year or 2 years as you continue. And I ask each individual, if you're an evangelist or you're considering being an evangelist, ask yourself why. Be introspective. What makes it awesome for you? And give yourselves a pat on the back and give another evangelist a high five, because I believe what we're doing is changing the way businesses operate in the future. So one final note is the value of evangelism is oftentimes under the surface. The price of evangelism can be a lot, or any other business activity can be much clearer. Things like retention instead of acquisition are under the surface. So when shit hits the fan, when your service goes down, when PR disasters happen, evangelism saves customers and it retains, and that's valuable, and you shouldn't ignore it. Thanks.